punched in the face other places?
Yeah, a lot of times. A lot of times.
Why do you think people do that? Why do you?
From my perspective, some of it is ignorance. Like some people just like genuinely like don't know. Some of it they know, but they just want to do it anyways because they think they're funny. And then other people just straight up don't care. They're just like the three things that I think about.
Does it? You've come home and shared things with me, but does it bother you? Like, does it bother you as a person? Right? I'm not even gonna say like as a, having a black mother and a white father, and does it bother you when you hear kids like say racist shit?
Yeah, it actually like infuriates me, like on the inside, because it's just annoying. Because like by now, like you're a senior in high school, like you know what you're doing, and then you're just choosing to do it anyways. Because like some people, like they just do it because they think they're cool, and then other people do it because they just genuinely like they're just idiots.
See, and that breaks my heart because I think from my perspective, it's kind of weird because I forget sometimes that other people haven't had the opportunity to be around different cultures like I have, and actually have real friends from different cultures and but still care. Like even from a young age, I always cared about how people got treated, and I always used to like racism always bothered me because I saw the pain. Right, because when I was young, I was made fun of and I had pain. So I always tell people like maybe you can't relate to what it's like to be a woman, or you can't relate what it's like to be an African American or a black person in this country, or a Puerto Rican or a Hispanic. But we all understand pain. We've all felt it, and so let's take that emotion and understand if I am making you feel like other than. We probably should stop that because somebody has made you feel that way. Because it's always funny how I look at some white women and they're like, I'm not racist. It's like, do you know, like, you basically were second-class citizens in this country up until, like, 15, 20 years ago. Mm-hmm. And even now, you're still getting paid, 85 cents on the dollar for everything. And that, so you're going to discard that now and be like, now we should all just suck it up. Like, and I never understood that. I never understood white men being nervous about the change of, like, I think we were talking about it last year with Mr. O'Neill. Mm-hmm. And I was saying how, like, I heard a white person go, in 2040, we're going to be the minority. And I said, maybe you don't know math, but that's not how that works, right? So white people are going to be 49.9% of the population. All minorities aren't going to now group up, mm-hmm. right, and be like, okay, now we got them. Like, there's going to be Puerto Ricans, Dominicans, mm-hmm. Mexicans, Guatemalans, right? Like, you're going to have, all these different subsets of people. And it's like, so who's still going to, like it's going to take 200 years.
Yeah. Well, it shows that it's like looking at that 51% as other. It's just grouping them all as one faceless mass that...
Yeah. It's that, like, all black people are like, right? Mm-hmm. Like monolithic. There's no...
There you go, monolithic.
There's no change. It's like... It's if people out there could actually listen and, like, actually discover and hear other people from other cultures, it's a fascinating thing to me. Maybe it's what the social studies teacher in me. Maybe it's how I was raised. But it's a fascinating thing to me that, like, if a Puerto Rican person from San Juan is talking to a Puerto Rican person from the hills, it's mm-hmm. the same way as if a person from Boston is talking to a person from New York, mm-hmm. or a person from New York is talking to a person from Louisiana, right? It's still supposed to be the same English, but it's broken up differently in, mix of dialects and cultures and mm-hmm. The diversity there. And it's like, we can't figure it out as a country that's really like, I forgot what it was, but I was at a Mexican restaurant, and there was a guy in front of me who was from the Dominican, and he was arguing with the Mexican guy because he had said I didn't want black beans, mm-hmm. but black beans it's just like a little
like
change,
frijoles or habichuelas.
So there's this little change, and he's like, but I said no, and then he was like, but that's not what it means, and I'm sitting there and I kind of knew, but I'm like, I'm white, so I'm staying out of this. I'm not gonna, sir, I'm not Karen in it. So So, but it's like, to me, those are the cool things. It's like, wait a minute, I have an opportunity, like
an opportunity to learn. And
yeah, well, because it's like, just because I eat, at a Mexican restaurant doesn't mean I'm a cultural expert, right? Uh-huh. Just because, like you have soul food and now what soul, like people don't get, watch documentaries, go sit down in other people's restaurants, learn from them, and then talk to people. Don't just
well, I think if you don't expose yourself to different cultures, you're going to end up being closed-minded. Because I remember growing up in Bushwick, and it was predominantly Hispanic, predominantly Puerto Rican, and everyone else did seem like other, right? Yeah. And or a threat in some way, or they're weird or different. And then going to high school in East New York, and now I was in the minority, and everyone else was predominantly black, and and then learning that, oh wow, it's like, yeah, there are things that are different, but there's things that we have in common, things that we like. And then I got to go into the Navy, and I remember thinking, boot camp, there'll be other Puerto Ricans, or and there were no Puerto Ricans in boot camp. It was predominantly white, and there were, I remember, 4 Mexican kids, but they were from I don't know, they were Tejanos or from California, and it was like, wow, even though we spoke Spanish, the culture was still very different.
Yeah.
But in time you get to know them, and they don't seem as strange anymore, and you get introduced to new things, and you get a broader perspective of the world. You start to understand things a lot clearer. And unfortunately, I don't think a lot of people open themselves up to that. They come across something that's different, and they shun it. They push it away. I think I told you the story of 2 of my shipmates on a submarine that I was on, and one of them was this black kid from Boston, I think, and the other kid, I don't remember, he was from Alabama or something. And I remember the white kid, he would sometimes say things that were kind of offensive, but it wasn't through just like Isaiah was saying, it was through ignorance. He wasn't being mean, but he would just say certain things that, like I said, in some places it would have gotten him punched in the face. But the kid from Boston, he was just like, let me tell you why that's not okay to say. Let me break it down to you. And the cool thing is that they ended up becoming, these 2 kids from different worlds ended up becoming real good friends. Yeah. And, they kept in, after the Navy, they kept in touch with each other. And it just goes to show that you can be different, but just because you're different, that doesn't mean that, you can't find things in common. Like you and I, it's like,
yeah,
like the first time I saw you, your personality is way different from, if I just assumed,
yeah,
how you are. It's like, and I'm sure like it's like that for a lot of the people that you meet. They just take a look at you and they assume that you're a certain way.
Oh yeah, it's until I remember people telling me I thought you were gonna be like an asshole.
Yeah.
And I got to know
you. Like an asshole.
And it's and then you get to know you, and you're like, you're a really cool dude. And I'm like, okay, but I don't know. Maybe it's maybe I'm naive. It never bothered me when people looked at me, because I'm always judged. Mm-hmm. When you're the tallest and biggest person in the room all the time, you're gonna get the question, how tall are you? How big are you? Right? Did you play football? Are you basketball?
How many times have you heard that throughout your life? It's just...
if I got $1, if I got 10 cents for every time, I could pay for his college in cash. It's maybe conservatively in new environments at least 5 times a day. So there's never been a day, whether I've been teaching, whether I've been young, that somebody hasn't walked by and go, how tall are you? Mm-hmm. Kids will do it in school.
When you walked into my classroom the other day,
yeah,
and it got quiet for a moment. Yeah. Everyone just kind of looked at you
yeah. And it's sometimes it's awkward because I'll get I don't know how to approach him. He's intimidating, even from coworkers. Mm. And I'm I'm intimidated. I'm like a teddy bear. What are you talking about? I'm like a teddy bear. I'm like, oh, all right, I'm like a grizzly. If you leave me alone and we're cool, mm-hmm. You poke the bear. I'm gonna, But it was always amazing to me. But see, as I grew up and learned about other things, which I think this is why learning and diversity and mm-hmm. equity in schools is important. is you start to, because you only have especially when you're young, you have this. This is, you are narrow-minded, and as you learn, it's almost like I said, you're watching a 20-inch TV. Most of these kids nowadays have no clue what that means. Mm-hmm. But you're like watching a laptop, right? And then all of a sudden, like, as you get educated, both, in the books, but also in the world, right? Just your experiences, you end up watching like a 70-inch screen TV, and it's like you see those things that you could never see on a smaller screen.
You got the definition now.
Yeah, it's high definition.
Yeah.
And I remember always equating it, like, I remember my father, I think I was in like 4th grade, and I love baseball, and, especially, when you have a dad, there's certain traditions in families. Baseball was like my father's, favorite thing, in hockey. So I remember him like introducing me to the story of Jackie Robinson. And I remember doing a report on Jackie Robinson, and I got upset at the way that he was treated. And the teacher, my 5th grade teacher, told me I couldn't do a report on Jackie Robinson because he wasn't a historical United States figure. And my father got so angry. The same guy that yelled at me for listening to rap music because it's not music got so angry he went to school and he was like, how are you going to tell me? I did a book report on George Washington Carver, on Frederick Douglass, and you're talking mid 1980s, so this is still newer. Mm-hmm. But this is what I was exposed to. And so it was cool to see my father expose me to that, knowing that he didn't get that same thing, but he liked to read interesting things, and he heard about things, and then when he became a teacher, he had to go back, and so he introduced it to me. And I remember always relating to the pain and understanding that when you're different, people are going to point it out. And then I also explain it to my kids and my students. See, like, I'm big, mm-hmm. right? And I'm white, right? But if I lose weight, I'm just going to be tall. I'm not just going to be big. I'm going to be tall and, toned. Now, could you imagine how a woman or a minority person feels where they can't change their skin color? Like, you're just going to see me as who I am. And I always think about that to kind of suppress thinking I know, right? Because sometimes it's that, like, just because I was different and people pointed out, I know now. But it's still not the same because, like, I could still drive in a nice car. I could buy a house and nobody's going to question if I'm trying to get into my house, right? But, thinking about that Henry Louis Gates, President Obama's friend, who, when the cops arrested him, and he's like the premier, mm-hmm. Professor at Harvard. This guy's he's got a doctorate, and they're like, you don't live here, right? Because the neighbor saw him, and so it's always like in the back of my mind, it's like, even though I can, reflect on the pain and see it, I still can't fully grasp it. And it really was, and I'm gonna share this here. It really was when he went to school, and I remember my wife telling me, like, when he was going through his issues, and we were trying to figure out what the best route is, and they're like, it feels like they're targeting Isaiah. Mm-hmm. And I remember saying, they want to do that, but that subtle racism, mm-hmm. that subtle judgment, that I couldn't, even as a dad, I couldn't see it. Because in my mind, I'm like, I want to do it. My parents don't do it. Why would... And then all of a sudden you realize, oh shit, I do it. Like, I do it, my own mm-hmm. self. Like, you see somebody, you judge them. The first thing you do is judge, right? Yeah. And so then you start studying that, and you're like, why do people judge? And then you realize, oh, it doesn't matter if you're black, white, Hispanic, purple, orange, like, subconsciously and
as
like...
As soon as, like you're saying, when people first see you,
yeah,
they until they get to know you.
Yeah, but we all do it, and then you look at the studies of, like, that, what is it, unconscious, like, what do they call it? See, this is where getting old sucks. But, like, it's that, like, social constructs. Mm-hmm. How, like, that, they do this MRI, and they show people visions, and the images of the people, go from light skin to dark skin, mm-hmm. and then back. And the part of the brain of fear lights up the darker a person is, and all of a sudden you're like, it's scientific fact that we have actually conditioned people to assume.
Like, remember the Harvard bias test?
That's what I'm talking. That's part of the study. And then you go to the dowels, and then you know, in a study on the dowels, and this dowel has blue eyes, this dowel has, right, and it's like I like this dowel better because she was more well behaved. Why? And then you realize like every